Welcome to the Geek to Geek podcast, where it is now officially March-ish. All the things are coming out, guys. All the things. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host, Beej.
It's things everywhere.
I know, everything is coming out, and also the wind is rushing at my house, and the thunderstorms are rolling at your house, so if there's a little bit of background stuff this week, that's why. We can't fight nature. But today, we are talking about the Nintendo Switch launch, because it's out, and I've been playing with it, and it's awesome.
And I'm just sitting here at home being like, you need to text me about the Switch. I want to see it. I want to know what's going on, you guys.
And I haven't been texting you because I've been too busy playing.
Yeah, I actually figured that was the case, that with you being gone back to work, I figured that your time was spent actually playing the thing instead of talking about it a lot this week.
That is exactly what happened. So, do you have any, big overriding questions? Otherwise, I have a ton of stuff to dive into, and then we can do questions at the end, whatever you want.
Okay, I have two, and they're actually kind of minor questions. One, I was curious with the Pro Controller that you got, is it wireless? Because I haven't checked on that, because I know it connects to a PC, and I didn't know if that meant it was USB or if it connected by Bluetooth.
No, it's wireless. I mean, it has a USB charging cable that goes, it's, USB-A to USB-C, I believe.
Okay.
But that's just the charging cable. And it might, I mean, that might be how they're getting the data connection to the PC also. You might be able to do it on PC wired. I don't know what the wireless deal is on PC. But no, I mean, the standard controller, when you're playing it with the Switch, it's just a normal wireless controller.
Okay, cool. I wasn't actually sure, so I wanted to ask about that. And also, have you licked a cartridge yet?
No, gross.
Why not? It's got the bitter coating on it. How can you not lick that game?
Why do you want to taste gross things?
Because I want to know. It's the first time in the history of video games that there has specifically been a special taste on the cartridge, and I want to lick it so bad.
Okay, you go buy a Nintendo Switch cartridge for the inevitable time when you buy a Nintendo Switch, and you just buy it so you can lick it, and then you report back to the podcast.
Austin told me that he already licked it, and it tastes like a really bad envelope glue, kind of like a Post-it note glue. So then I went and licked a Post-it note, and we posted about it on Facebook, how we're adults.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so that's my experience with a Nintendo Switch so far. I think yours will be very different.
Wow. Okay, anything else before we dive in?
No, other than that, I was looking through the notes, and I'll just chime in as you hit the points, because there's no sense in talking about them out of order.
Okay, so I wanted to talk, before we talk about the system, I want to talk about launch day woes that I had. I bought it from Amazon, and I had my pre-order in within 10 minutes of the pre-orders going live. And this was in the middle of January, right after it was announced.
Yep.
So it had guaranteed release day, delivery, all that kind of stuff. And every time I've ever had a release day delivery from Amazon before, it's always been perfectly fine, no issues at all. That did not happen.
I've had a single problem. The entire time I've ever pre-ordered anything, I've had one problem with a launch day thing, and it came in super late, but still made it on launch day.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Apparently Amazon, and I had to talk to a bunch of service reps because I was getting really worried about my package showing up on time.
Yeah, of course.
So I kept chatting with it because it'll connect you to a different person every time, right? So you can get different information out of different people. No one ever wants to give you the full picture because they're kind of protecting themselves. But in talking to 4 or 5 different people over the course of that day, it turns out that Nintendo did not give them the shipment on time. So they were trying their best to get things out as fast as possible. But it was depending on where you ordered yours or when you ordered yours, it came out of different distribution warehouses. So some people, my brother, he ordered his way later than I did. And not even the same day, weeks and weeks later, he managed to get one when they put up, one of those new restocks of pre-orders when they're oh, we're going to get more shipments, whatever.
Right.
He got his on day one. It showed up his doorstep by that night. No problem.
Aww.
I ordered mine within 10 minutes of it going live, and it did not show up here until Monday.
Wow. I knew that you had said it was going to be delayed, but I was kind of hoping that it would be in on Saturday, despite them saying that maybe Monday. But it actually did come in on Monday.
So the package showed up here. Yeah, we're recording on Tuesday. It showed up here yesterday, late afternoon, Monday afternoon. So I was going back and forth with them on launch day, and they're like, "Oh no, it'll get there." And I was like, "There's no way. Like, there's no way. It hasn't shipped yet. It is not getting here." So as the day went on, one person along the way had told me like, "Oh yeah, it's not going to get there," and then they immediately kind of like backpedaled on it. So I didn't like freak out on them, but I mentally panicked, and I texted my wife because she knew like how excited I was for the Switch, and I was like, "Hey, it's still mid-morning. If you have a chance and you're out anyway," which she was, "can you look around and see if you can get me a Nintendo Switch today?" And so she totally saved the day. She went out and she checked like 2 or 3 stores, and she ended up at Target where they had like 5 left. And this was like
awesome.
10 a.m. Target opens at like 8-ish. So 10 a.m. she just walked in the door, no line, nothing, and got one. And she said there were about 5 left after that. So she saved the day for me. She picked up that, and she picked up a Pro controller and Zelda. So that was kind of like the core of my bundle. All the other accessories, I was like, whatever, I can wait till Monday. No big deal.
All right.
And those were waiting for me when I got home, and it was perfect. So my wife absolutely rocks.
Does Amazon have any kind of like recompense on the fact that they had a guarantee and it didn't happen?
Yeah, it depends like who you talk to
fixed?
And like what you push back on. I got a little bit of like Amazon store credit, and then like a month or 2 of free Prime on top of, my normal thing. I do know some people got up to like 30, 40 or $50 from Amazon.
Yeah.
And then after that, they also got like 4 or 5 months of Prime. I don't know what they pushed to get that, but yeah.
Do you still have that Switch?
So I do not have that. That is shipping out to somebody else that I know, who's been an online friend for a long time, and he decided that he wanted to Switch, but never pre-ordered it, and kind of decided after it came out and it was getting a lot of good buzz. So I had floated it out there for a few different people I thought might be interested, and I said, hey, if you want this, you can have it. I'll just charge you retail. I don't need to make any money off of it, but then I don't have to deal with Amazon returns. So that's what ended up happening to the bundle that showed up on Monday, because I had 2 Nintendo Switches for a little bit of time, but I didn't want them. I didn't want 2. I just wanted 1.
And I was actually going to ask the same thing because I knew you had that idea out there, and I've got some stuff on eBay right now that I'm hoping will sell so that I can grab one. And since a lot of the places are selling them for a lot more than retail right now, I was like, if you've still got it, hold on to it for a week or so if you're not getting rid of it.
Yep, nope, it's already spoken for. It's
Makes sense.
Shipping away to somebody, but at least it's going to someone I know and not just returning to Amazon to go to a random whoever.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of the internet. Oh,
indeed. Okay, so let's talk about the hardware a little bit. I like it. I like it a lot.
Good.
Like that's the main thing. Yes, end of show. No, I don't know. Okay, so I guess a high level here. I don't know why Nintendo is marketing this as a console that you can take with you. It is like because they're asking to be compared to like PS4 and Xbox One when they do that.
Right.
And if you look at the experience of playing this while it is docked and you're sitting in your living room looking at a TV with a, like a Pro controller, that's basically equivalent, right, to home console stuff. It is fine. It is another Nintendo system. Like it's fine. It's not going to compete with PS4 and Xbox One on hardware, but you get Nintendo games, you can play them in your living room, you have a decent controller. It's fine. But when you do it from the other side, when you say, like, look at this as a handheld and look at what it can do, it's like the best handheld that has ever been released ever. And it's amazing. And then as an added feature, you can dock it at home and play those games on your TV. Like, that is how they should be marketing it. I don't know why they're approaching it from the other way, because it makes it less impressive. Like, flip it around, market it as a handheld that docks as an added bonus, and you have like one of the most impressive pieces of hardware ever.
But at the same time, would that not also knock out a big demographic of people who are in the console market and don't necessarily consider themselves handheld players? Because when you look at the people who tend to be handheld gamers, they're the majority kids. So when you're looking at a console, you're marketing it as well as toward young adults and adults, which, I mean, yeah, it's Nintendo, and I mean, you have that built-in fan base anyway, but there are people who probably see a handheld as something that they're not going to buy, or that it wouldn't be something that you could buy for your whole family. You'd be buying it for an individual kid or an individual individual person, even though you can dock it. So if I had, that's probably where I would look at it coming from, looking at it as a family media center, family gaming console, as opposed to a single person's handheld that can then be given to the family.
But I mean, the thing is, even when it's a handheld, you can play it multiplayer. Like, it has 2 controllers strapped to the sides, plus you can use however many more. Like, it's a super, super impressive handheld. It's like a handheld built for a family. Like, I've been playing this with my daughter a bunch of places around the house. It's not just in front of the TV. And
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they know why they're doing it. I'm sure they have rationale in place. I just think it's kind of a misstep that they're not selling it the other way around, because it's so much more impressive to me that this thing is a handheld and what it does as a handheld console. So, I don't know. I guess the other thing is that, like, it plays better when it's not docked. Like,
how is that possible?
The screen and, like, the hardware, it just plays better when it's not in the dock. I mean, the biggest place that you can see this is that when you're playing Zelda, you take frame rate hits having it docked to a TV. Whereas when it's in your hand, you don't. Like, it's really smooth. I haven't had any problems at all playing when I'm playing it in handheld mode. But whenever I have it docked, like, as soon as there's a lot going on the screen, the frame rate dips. And frame rate dips are not something that really bug me personally a whole lot. But when I'm noticing it and going, that's not great, that means that there are other people out there freaking out about how bad it is.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, is that because it, like, raises the resolution when it does that? Does it make it 1080p when you're on the TV and a lower resolution 720 or something when you're on the handheld?
Yes,
because that's the only reason I can even think about that.
Yeah, it's up converting it or something along the way, and it's causing it to, I don't know, whatever the process is there. It plays slightly worse when it's on the TV. And it's not bad, and it's not in every game. Like, the other games we've been playing, haven't noticed it at all. But, I mean, they have said from the beginning that, like, Breath of the Wild is the one that's going to put the most strain on your system out of the gate. And it's evident when you dock it and there's a lot going on the screen.
Is there an option to lower the resolution on the TV?
No, I don't think it works like that. I haven't seen it anyway. Yeah, but it's not bad when it's docked. It's just better as a handheld is the main thing. So it's not horrible. It's not like screen teary unplayable. It's just like slightly, sometimes you go, oh, there's a little bit of frame rate hit there.
That kind of makes me sad, because I would probably be playing it more as a console than I would be as a handheld.
Well, here's the thing. I really like the screen on the Switch itself. Like, I find myself really drawn to that handheld mode of the system. And it's, like I said, it kind of feels like that should be the default. And I'm not always playing it when I'm holding it in my hands. Like, a lot of the time I am playing it in bed at night, and I'll, like, take off the joycons off the side, and I'll just, like, lay the screen against my headboard, even though there's a kickstand. Like, I don't really use the kickstand ever. But I just kind of, like, prop the screen back up against my headboard, and I'll play like that a lot of the time, which is really nice to do.
When you have the Joy-Cons like that disconnected and you're playing it with one in each hand, does it feel like the Wii when you have a nunchuck and the main Wiimote?
Yeah, kind of. And I'm not a huge fan of that, so I'm doing more handheld and less of, like, pulling those out and propping up the screen. Because I just don't like that, like, disconnected hand feeling. But yeah, it feels a lot like that. It kind of gives off the same vibe as the Wii plus nunchuck.
See, and I liked that. So that was the reason I was asking, that if it actually controlled that way, where they were two parts of the same like that and you could do it, because I would probably find myself doing that a bunch.
Yeah, if you liked the Wiimote plus nunchuck, this is way better. It's such a better version of that, but it has the same core feel. So you would probably really like it, honestly.
That's great. That may actually keep me from buying a Pro controller, to be honest, because that was my favorite part about the Wii, is being able to sit back with just my arms splayed out, being like ultra comfy and be like, oh, I'm playing my game. I don't have to move and even hold my arms together because I'm lazy. It was great.
Nice.
Like, I don't know why that's a thing, but it's like, I don't want to hold my arms together. That's how lazy of a gamer I am.
And I don't like the disconnected arm feeling like that. But I mean, I've heard other people say that they love it because they liked the Wii with nunchucks. So yeah, and we'll talk more about controllers here in a second. But the other, like, high level thing I wanted to hit with the hardware is that the suspend feature works really, really well. Like,
great.
It's just like the Vita, essentially, where it's like a one button press and it's just suspended. It's so much more like a handheld than it is like a console. It like a, home console in that regard.
Right.
Because like I know you can do it on the PS4. I do it sometimes. I know you can do something similar on the Xbox One, even though I don't own one, so I don't know the exact process. But those are like you hold the button and then you look in a menu and you pick the thing to suspend. Like it's a couple steps, you know. This is designed like a handheld, like how you could just close your 3DS clamshell and it would go into suspend mode, or how on the Vita you hit the one button and okay, it's suspended now. That is how the Switch plays. There's just that main power button on top. You just tap it and then like instantly it suspends wherever you are. So it means that I can play Zelda in short bursts and not feel bad about it. You know, there's not that extra friction of like startup time every time you want to load it and like, oh, I have to remember to save. Okay, and then after I save, I should quit and power down the system. It's not that. It's like, oh, I need to do something. I hit a button and I set the console down. It's so nice.
Can you do that while it's docked?
You can reach over and hit the power button. I don't actually know if it suspends instantly. When it's docked, you can hold the home button down and then you get a little menu. So it's kind of similar to like a PlayStation or an Xbox. Like it pops out a menu and then the default option in that one is like put it to sleep mode or something like that. So it's still quick, but it's not the one button thing. And if it is the one button thing, you have to be within like arm's reach of your console to do it.
Yeah, which is likely that's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then the one other hardware thing I wanted to mention before we talk about controllers is the kickstand sound. Like it is the worst engineered part of the Nintendo Switch is the kickstand. Like no question about it. It just, when you open that kickstand, it has this like crunch sound to it that you feel almost like you're breaking the system. I mean, you know you're not. You can feel it in your hand that you're not shattering it or anything, but it just has this really unpleasant like and it's just not good. And it feels flimsy. Like you set it, you know, you set it on a table or whatever and you set it up and you're like, is that gonna fall over? It looks like it might fall over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do not like the kickstand on this thing at all, which is why, like I mentioned before, like if I'm playing in bed and I want to prop it up, I prop it up against my headboard. I don't even like put that kickstand out because I kind of hate the kickstand. And I mean, if you're playing around the house or wherever, though, you have stuff everywhere that you can prop it up against, you know, pillows and things on the couch, or like you just throw it in your lap and disconnect the joycons. Like, and you can use the kickstand. Like, it works. It's not to say that it doesn't work. I just don't like it, and it feels, I don't know. It just doesn't feel as like precisely engineered as everything else in this system.
And I mean, if that's the worst part about it, then that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Okay, let's talk about the controllers a little bit, which we already touched on. But I like the Joy-Cons a lot. Like way more than I thought I would. They feel really great when they're clicked into the handheld mode. Like handheld mode, I think might become my default because I like it so much. But beyond that, they work fine as separate controllers. And I'm talking about when you take them off the sides and you like rotate it 90 degrees, so it's sideways, that kind of separate controller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where they actually become the horizontal, normal kind, like typical controller that you would have on a system.
Yeah, and they work fine. That's how my kids have been playing stuff every night. Like, I give each of them one of those controllers, and I've actually been using the safety clip strap things. I don't know what the actual terminology is for those, but those safety clip things, they add just enough bulk to it to make it feel, like, really nice in your hand. Like, it's perfectly acceptable without that, you know, if you're on the go and you're out, whatever, you know, if you're at an airport or if you're at work or something, you wouldn't need to feel like you have to bring those with you. But they are very nice to have, especially if you're at home, and not for like the safety strap, like whatever, you're not going to throw the thing. It's more just for the bulk and for the shoulder buttons that it adds, because the default Joy-Con, the shoulder buttons are recessed in there. And if you add the strap on top, the shoulder buttons are like out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Where it's easier to, they're more traditional with them being like protruding as opposed to being recessed.
Yeah, so my kids have played a ton of Snipperclips and Bomberman that way, and both of them are going like, they both love it. It's great. It's super easy. I am pretty sure that's how my wife and I are going to play a bunch of Mario Kart once Mario Kart comes out on the system. Like, it seems like the perfect way to, you know, you just have a really simple little controller, play that wherever in bed at night before we're going to bed, that kind of thing. Yeah, so the safety clips, it's really nice for the form factor, but those safety clips are really, really hard to get off. And if you put it on the wrong way, it's like almost impossible to get off. Like, you have to be really careful with those things.
Did you do it by accident, or did you try it on purpose?
No, I specifically looked very carefully every time because one of my friends who got the system before me said that they cut themselves when they tried to get it off when they put it on backwards.
Oh my goodness.
Like, that's how much force they had to use.
That's kind of awesome, actually. I think it's kind of funny.
Even when you put them on the right way, they're still kind of annoyingly hard to get off, but it's fine. I mean, I'm already noticing, like, once they're a little bit more broken in, it's not as big of a deal. It was just that first day or two. Like, it was, such tight tolerances on it that it was hard to get those things off once they were, like, locked into place. The one thing I should say with the Joy-Cons is I do not like the dog head controller at all. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's been going around the internet, the dog head controller. It's the one I think it's technically called the Joy-Con grip. It's the thing that's just like a piece of plastic that you click the two Joy-Cons into, and it kind of makes a traditional controller. You know what I'm talking about, right, Beej?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, where it makes that kind of square where it's just, it's like a mini Pro controller.
Yeah, I don't like that thing at all. Like,
is it because of the form factor just being so rigid?
It's not that it's rigid. It's just that it's uncomfortable. Like, it's not, I don't know. The grips aren't the way they should be. Like, you know what a controller is supposed to feel like in your hand. You've held modern controllers, like everything from 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, like everything. There's just kind of like a fit that they generally have in your hand. And this one does not conform to that. Like, some of the buttons are a little bit wonky to reach, even. Just like the positioning on them and how far the Joy-Cons click in versus where the grips are. And they're not full grips. Like, if you go look at that thing, they're kind of like half grips. And then the back of it is like the back of the Joy-Con. It's just not comfortable. Like, it's not horrible. I don't want to give that impression. It's kind of acceptable, but it's not good. So the way that I've been playing every time I do it in docked mode downstairs is I use the Pro Controller. It's just, there's no question the Pro Controller is like heads above what the Joy-Con grip is.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like expected for me because they're, especially with them charging so much, but it tends to be that whenever there's an extra peripheral like that, it's going to be better.
Yeah, and the Pro Controller is really good, honestly. The rumble across all of them is fine. Like, I have noticed that it's a little bit more nuanced than like a PlayStation controller or an Xbox controller, but I haven't noticed any, they were selling it as like groundbreaking technology. It's not. I mean, it's
well, yeah.
It's better though. It's better. It's not just like a full controller rumble. It's kind of like, oh, I can feel the rumble on the one side or the other side or like different parts of the control. It's almost like I don't know if you've played much with like a Steam controller, but the haptic feedback inside of one, it feels a little bit like haptic feedback.
Okay. I know what that feels like, but no, I've never messed with a Steam controller. I want to, but I just never have.
Okay. And then the other thing with controllers is that, which you already mentioned this, but that Pro Controller, apparently you can use that on PC now, even though it's not standard, but people are using it already, it's cool. It's like a nice to have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good bonus for people who don't want to have a different controller for pretty much everything, just cluttering up the house.
Exactly. The docking and undocking of the system is like really, really close to seamless. And it kind of ties in with the controllers here, but it's more just like an overall statement. I really like the way that it docks and undocks. Some people are saying that like you have to be careful with the screen because if you're not careful, you can like scratch it or crack it. I think those are just people who don't treat their electronics with respect because I don't know how you could do that unless you were super rough with your system. Like from my end, I haven't seen any way that would happen. And I don't know. I mean, I've had the console just as long as everybody else besides journalists,
Yeah, and if you're the kind of person who gets a Switch on day one and you crack the thing by not treating it well, by taking it in and out of a dock, I mean, you really are probably being super careless.
Yeah, probably.
Like, I mean, that's part of the design is to move it in and out of the thing as effortlessly as possible. So if you crack a screen doing that, you're just not paying attention.
Yeah. So overall, it's really smart when you dock it and undock it. Sometimes you dock it and you're still just kind of playing because it knows like what controller you are using and that you could still use it. A lot of the time when you either dock it or you pull it out of the dock, it pauses your game and it kicks you into this like controller. It's not a resync mode. You don't have to sync them up again, but it's like a controller grip assignment mode.
Oh, okay.
It just asks you, it's like, okay, whatever controller scheme you're using right now, hit the left and right buttons on it, the L and R trigger, so that we know what configuration you're in. And because of that, it's really smart, right? So if you have a single Joy-Con on its side, you have those two recessed buttons, so it knows, you hit those two, okay, you're on that controller. Or if you have each Joy-Con independently or in handheld mode, it's the same thing, basically. You hit the two of those. Or if you're on a Pro controller, you hit the, it's just like, I haven't ever been in a situation where it guessed incorrectly when I needed to reset up something. So it's like
awesome.
Every time I would have needed to like change things around, it is already one step ahead of me. And it's like, okay, here's a prompt. Hit the buttons on the new controllers that you want to use.
Right. And then you just immediately take up with the game where you left off.
Yeah. And that part's seamless. I mean, it basically just suspends the game because, like I said before, it has, the one button suspension thing. So it's no big deal to the Switch. It just suspends it, and then it prompts you, what controller are you on? And then you just keep going. It's super fast.
I guess it kind of reminds me of switching from the TV to the gamepad on the Wii U.
Kind of. I mean, yeah, there's definitely more options than that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. And it really, it's a nice solution because it's not a clamshell design like the, 3DS or the DS.
Right.
Like, it's a good way to figure it out, like when you need to change things around. Another thing with the hardware is that posting to social media is easier than any system I've ever seen, handheld or console. Like, wow. I know that PS4 and Xbox and like I think Vita and 3DS can post in some way or another. I always feel like every single one of them has like one or two too many steps in the process.
Yeah,
like it's a little
real.
Too convoluted. You don't have quite enough control over what you want it to do or what you want it to say or like how it pushes it out. And the Switch, I set it up like, because I've set it up on PS4. Like I've shared a couple things from there, but it always is kind of just a pain to do it. And
is it?
I think on the Switch, I'm going to share more from that system than any other one that I've ever owned because it's so easy to do. I mean, there's basically just a screenshot button, and then there's a menu where you can go post from it. And when you go into the photo, like you can switch it around a little bit. You can like customize it. You can add your own text and things to it, which is really cool. And then it's pretty seamless. Like it's not that far off from PS4, but it just feels more streamlined.
And I like that you can put text on it. Because I'd seen, I think it was Hestia on Twitter had posted a picture of her horse, and it was from Breath of the Wild, and it was just in like yellow letters, like, my horse! And I was like, that's awesome, because it was just funny when I saw it, and I could tell that it was a share, and I didn't know how she had added the text. So I really am glad that kind of thing is on there, because there's a lot of times that I'll see like a PS4 share, and they, I don't know what they're trying to call out in the picture, because either I'm not familiar with the game, or I don't have the context of that area or the situation, and it's just like, okay, cool, that's a pretty picture, I guess, or something's happening, I'm sure. But being able to call it out is really, really nice for actual sharing and starting conversations.
Yeah, I think including the ability to put text on the image like that was one of the smartest things they did with the social feature. Like, yeah. I think you're going to see that on Twitter and on Facebook and like a bunch of places just because like Nintendo added a little bit extra to it.
And it's just enough to make it a quality of life change instead of a just typical like, oh yeah, this is an extra feature that nobody's going to use. I think that does make it better and more likely for people to use it.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so hardware, the last couple things here. Like I said, I like the HD rumble. Rumble's never been a big thing for me on controllers, but I will say this is the best rumble that I've ever had in a controller. I still don't care that much about it. But if you are somebody who absolutely loves like what rumble and controllers can do, I don't know if those people exist, but if you do, you are going to be so happy with the rumble and the Nintendo Switch. And then the last thing is that there's no install time. and this is something that I didn't even notice until last fall when I was renting all those GameFly things back to back on PlayStation. Yeah. Like, you could put a disc in and wait like an hour, for it to download, and like it installs local content from the disc to your system, and then it grabs patches online and installs. Like, the Switch doesn't have any of that. Like, and again, I'm going to buy all digital after Zelda, but because I wanted the game on day one and I didn't know how server reliability would be or anything like that, I have a physical copy of Zelda. And you put the game in and you start it, and it just plays, which sounds like duh, right? Like, that's how it should be. That's how it always was with like old cartridges and stuff. But we've somehow gotten away from that, and people are just okay with it now. So to go back to just being able to put a game in and it instantly works is just amazing. This is even with a day one patch on Zelda. You just put it in and start playing, and the day one patch downloads in the background and asks you to update it. Are you serious? Yeah, it just asks you to update it next time you relaunch the game. It does. I don't even think it asks you. I think it's just the first time after it downloads in the background. The first time you close the game, it just auto updates it, and then the next time you go in, you're just in an updated version. Like, it's so seamless compared to what you have to do if you are buying physical stuff for a PS4.
Oh man, that is awesome, because that's always one of my biggest issues on PS3, any console really that you have to install, is sometimes I just want to go play a game and I don't care if there's an update to it. That if I could either do it in the background like this and do it next time, which is great, or, just tell it that I don't want to update right then because I have 15 minutes and I want to play. I don't want to waste that by letting you download and just take over my system. So I think that is a wonderful idea.
Yeah, it's so nice. And it was one of those things that I didn't realize like how much nicer it was because I'm mostly digital. But like I said, I was so frustrated last fall with GameFly and having to install everything I rented. It just took forever. And it's just instant, You put the game in and you start playing. It's fantastic. That's how it should always be, but it's not. Yep. So the Switch is doing good things there. Okay. That's kind of hardware. I have thoughts about games too, but do you have any questions about the hardware?
No, I think actually that's about all I was. Oh, yes, I do. Have you had any problems with the left Joy-Con?
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, well, good. All right.
No, I don't have like any line of sight issues between me and the console when it's docked. And right. I also don't sit super far away from it, which it sounds like it sounds like those are the two main contributors to it, is if you have things between you and the dock or if you're really far away from it. And I'm not either one of those things, and I haven't had any issues at all.
Okay, cool. Good.
Yeah. Okay, so the games. I picked up 4 launch games. Let's start with Bomberman. It is still Bomberman. Sometimes the camera is really, really annoying in this version of Bomberman, but it's Bomberman. Like, I don't have much else to say. Yeah. My kids really wanted this one for some reason, and I think it's because I just told them it was a multiplayer game that we could all play, so it's my own fault. I wouldn't have bought this one without the kids. Like, I would never buy this for myself, but I'm glad that we have it just so, like, we have something that all of us can play at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's about all I have to say about Bomberman. The one that I really like that I didn't know if I was going to like it or not is Snipperclips, which, have you seen this one?
No, I haven't. I need to.
Okay, you basically control these shapes and you can overlap them, and each player controls a different shape, right? It's best played like 2 to 4 player. You overlap the shapes, and then if you hit a button, whatever the shape is overlapped on the other one, it will cut that out of the other player. So you can cut each other into different shapes, and then you use that to complete objectives. It's kind of like miniature puzzles. It's really like no one of them is super hard, but it's kind of just fun. I don't know a better way to put it. It's a day one eShop exclusive. It's only $19, which goes a long way towards recommending it. And honestly, like, this is the most multiplayer fun that I've had on the system. Like, Bomberman is fine, but it's still Bomberman. Snipperclips is a ton of fun. Like, if you are going to pick up a Switch, I recommend getting Zelda, and I recommend getting Snipperclips because it's that good. And it's not super long, it's not super in-depth, but again, it's only $19. It's not $50.
And is there any kind of replayability to it? Because it's multiplayer, but I mean, you said there were objectives. Can you still go back through and have fun after you've already beaten it?
Yeah, you can replay levels if you want and just like do puzzles that other people haven't seen. If you have people over who've never played it before. And then there also is like a competitive multiplayer, just kind of like a fun mode in there too, which goes a little bit towards replayability. Like, honestly,
right, that does.
It would, if it were any more money than it was, like, I would say that it needs a bunch more puzzles in it. But for $19, it feels about right. Yeah.
And for a day one eShop too, I mean, it's, you honestly expect about that kind of game to be on a day one digital platform like that.
Yep, exactly. I also got Fast RMX, which is like a racing game, just because, I don't know, I was just buying stuff. A new system launched. I wanted to buy a bunch of stuff. And it's fine. Like, it's kind of somewhere between, it's not really Mario Kart. It's kind of like F-Zero in a way. Okay. Like super fast racing. It also has some of, and I'm blanking on the name of the game, the one where you switch yourself back and forth, Ikagura or whatever.
I don't know that one.
One of those, like, those bullet hell games where there's like different colored dots and you can change your own color back and forth to absorb them or reject whatever. It does that, but for racing. So there are orange stripes on the ground and there are blue stripes on the ground for boost, and you can hit a button to change yourself back and forth between the different phases. So if you're orange and you run over an orange one, you get a speed boost, basically. Same thing for blue. So it's kind of like F-Zero, but with that color changing mechanic thrown on top of it. So it's okay. It's not my favorite genre. If you really like racing games, you should probably pick up the Fast RMX if you have a Switch.
That actually sounds really cool to me.
Yeah, and again, I'm not a huge racing game guy, but if I were, I think I'd be playing that one a lot.
I just Googled pictures of it, and it looks very much like Wipeout.
Yes, that's another good like touch point for it. Not far off at all.
Yeah, because I love Wipeout. Like, I go crazy for it. I don't know why, but man, I love me some hovercraft racing.
Nice. Okay, and then, of course, Zelda. Zelda is amazing. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be my favorite Zelda game ever. It's on track. I want to beat it first, or at least get near the end before I say that for sure. So I'm not really committing to that statement yet. But I think next week we're going to talk about Zelda all week. So I'm going to try, or next episode, all episode. So I'm going to try to beat it by this time next week. And I might be able to. I don't know. I'm like 25 to 30 hours into it, and I've barely done any of the main story. Like, I'm just exploring.
Wow.
They finally kind of like got out of their Zelda bubble. Zelda's been so stagnant for such a long time, and it's like they finally stopped and looked at all the other modern games. They looked at the Western market and what we're doing with open world games. And then they went back and incorporated all of those good things back into that core Zelda DNA, while still keeping like the spirit of the kind of the open Zelda games, like the very original Legend of Zelda or Ocarina of Time, or, like Link to the Past, Link Between Worlds, the ones that feel more open. It has that spirit, but it's totally been brought up to modern times. Finally.
I'm really excited to play this one because of that in particular, to finally feel what Hyrule is. Because when I was a teenager and Ocarina of Time came out, I loved being able to just kind of wander the plains and see how everything connected. And with this one having, I'm assuming, bunches of side quests and characters, it'll be interesting to feel that as kind of a world for the first time instead of just a theme park.
Yeah, and I don't want to... Next week, we're going to talk about it the whole episode, so I don't want to give like any spoiler even remotely here, but I will say that it's an open world. It very, very much rewards you for exploring, which most open worlds forget to do because they get so full of how much junk can we cram in here. Like, this one you can explore for the sake of exploring, and you will find things that are worth your time. Like, it never feels like a waste of your time to just be like, what's up that mountain? What's around that corner? It's always something, which is super impressive. And along with like the exploration and the freedom that it gives you, there are just a bunch of interesting systems in place that kind of make for organic things that can happen. Sometimes it's a combat encounter. Sometimes it's like what you can do with the physics or like the engine of the game. Like, there are a bunch of things that I'm trying to talk around it here without even spoiling anything. If you're trying to, come in completely fresh. There are things that have happened that I just kind of went, wow, that's really impressive. That would never have happened in a past Zelda game because it was so scripted and so like, you know, like they're finally letting go a little bit and letting you break things in interesting ways or solve puzzles in ways they didn't intend or skip over a whole chunk of things because you find a workaround because you're thinking outside the box and they're not going to penalize you for it. It's so
And that's
cool.
exactly the kind of thing that you get into so hard, is just not necessarily trying to break it, but figure it out.
Yes. No, this systems, like it's a very much a systems driven game, which is one of the reasons it's so appealing to me. It's exploration. And we talked about this when we talked about our Bartle types, right? I'm an explorer and I like story. And I've talked at length about how I love systems in games and really getting my head around systems. And this is an exploration game with super interesting systems. So this one is like right in my wheelhouse and I'm absolutely loving it. I have tons and tons of thoughts. I will save them for next week.
Awesome. I cannot wait to hear it because I might have a Switch by then. Probably won't, but I've got stuff on eBay that I'm hoping sells that I can get one. And, if I can find one that's not $500, but we'll see. Like, I want to experience this.
That would be sweet. And then I also just wanted to, a couple last points on the Switch, and we'll move on to Geekery for the night. I want to say what my kids think about it. So I asked them. They both like it a lot. They really are having a lot of fun with it. They're saying that they both love Bomberman and they love Snipperclips, and I was trying to get them to tell me which one they like more than the other, and they couldn't decide, so obviously they like both. But I will say the Joy-Cons are perfect for them. A Joy-Con set on its side with the clip on it, that's like the perfect first controller for a kid. And my kids in particular, my kids in particular are like beyond that because I've given them 2DS, like they both have a 2DS. They both play on the Wii U all the time. Like they know how to do, modern gaming controllers just like I do, just like you do. But when you are a parent and you're trying to get your kid to start at first, it can be really, really intimidating to pick up a giant controller. This is such a good like onboarding point to give them a controller that's just simplified and it fits their hand, their little tiny kid hand.
And Nintendo is so good at this. That was why I loved the original Wii so much, is because you had this just very simple remote that had, it had a control pad on it. It had a couple of buttons and a trigger. I mean, that was all you needed just for that controller. And it got children and honestly elderly people back then who had never really touched games, or middle-aged and elderly people. I just remember a lot about nursing homes at the time that it got them playing games because it was intuitive and easy to hold on to and not intimidating, because they didn't have like the modern controllers with 4 triggers, 4 buttons, a home button, a select button, a D-pad, 2 sticks, and where they're just like, I don't know, I can't press all these buttons.
Yeah, this goes a long way towards helping people just kind of get on board again with gaming. I think that Mario Kart is going to be a huge hit on this system just because like those simplified control schemes are going to be so approachable for people. And the fact that this system essentially comes with 2-player controllers built in, which hasn't happened since I believe the Super Nintendo, that there have been 2 controllers packaged with a system. And
the PlayStation I might have gotten 2 PlayStation controllers with mine.
But it's like, it's been so long that you can never assume that someone has a second controller until now. So you can make 2-player games for the Nintendo Switch. I mean, I'm not going to. I'm not a game maker, but game like developers could. And they know that there are 2 controllers there, that every single person who owns one of these consoles has the potential for 2-player without buying any extra hardware. And I think long-term, that is going to be really interesting to watch.
That's actually something that makes me want to pick it up, because Jennifer and I like playing Mario Kart. But, money's tight, and picking up a second controller is, not necessarily a priority for us on every system. And to be able to just play Mario Kart is really useful for us, because that's something that we love doing together. And even if we got a used Wii U and bought Mario Kart, we would still have to buy a second controller to do it, and we're pushing up near the Switch price just to have to do that.
Yeah, so I hope that you get one. I think you would really like it. in general, it's fitting into my life really well, just kind of like I expected it would. So generally, like after I get the kids down for the night, I go downstairs and hang out near my wife while I play. I've been playing it in the docked mode with a Pro controller. And play for a while we just kind of hang out and talk and do whatever. And then when we're winding down for the night, I pull it out of the dock and I take it upstairs and I play it in bed while we're kind of winding down for the night. And it's been really cool. Like, I really like it. And it just sits on my nightstand, you know, when I go to sleep. I hit the one button to suspend it whenever I'm like, oh, I'm about to fall asleep. Set it down and it's there the next morning.
And I know that we've talked about it before and mentioned it in the past, but you are the ideal gamer for this system. That people like you with a family, with a wife, with a job, and just the whole adult responsibility thing are the ideal gamer for this because you can do it anywhere. That it's not like the gamepad on the Wii U that has to stay tethered, even though it's wireless, to the console itself, that you can easily shut it down. You can do whatever you want to with it. And that kind of freedom is honestly going to allow you to continue gaming as a part of your life instead of having to have it segregated off and its own compartmentalized thing over here that you do in lieu of something else with your family. I really think that Nintendo really hit on to something great here that they should have been able to do with the Wii U, but maybe didn't have the foresight to, or maybe even the technology to do at the time.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I was going to tell this story anyway, but it ties in perfectly to what you were just saying. Like, my daughter wasn't feeling good the other night, and it's not, she wasn't sick. Like, if you're a parent, you know this. Kids they just don't feel good sometimes, right? And there's nothing wrong. You don't need to take them to the doctor. They don't need medicine. They just don't feel good that night. So she wasn't feeling good, and she wanted me to be nearby her, which is totally, you know, that's a totally normal thing. It happens all the time. And normally, if she would want me to hang out, you know, like, her room's just a couple down from mine upstairs. So we would both be in our rooms, and we just kind of have our doors open in case, you know, the other person needs something or we need to talk or whatever. She just didn't want to be as far away from us as us being downstairs. So typically in that situation, I'd kind of like plop on my bed and pull out my phone and, you know, do Twitter or play like phone games or whatever. And I just brought the Nintendo Switch upstairs and I was playing Zelda, you know, like I sat in a chair in my room and kind of keeping an eye out for my daughter, and I just played Zelda for hours because I could. Like, I didn't have to change what I wanted to do. It was exactly what I wanted to do, but it was just in a different room of the house.
And that kind of thing is going to hopefully go forward. That was both spurred by mobile gaming and handheld gaming, but also, you know, just quality of life stuff that gamers have wanted for so many years. That we've always wanted to do this. It's like, man, I want to play Zelda, but I got to do this over here instead. I got to be in here for whatever reason. It's like, I just want to play my game. And now we can.
Yeah, it's so nice to just kind of take it wherever you need it to be at the time, or free up the TV for the other person without pausing. Yep. You just take it out of the dock and you're still playing.
That's going to be a great thing for me because we only have one TV in the house. So being able to do something like that when I want to play Legend of Zelda and my wife wants to watch Dr. Pimple Popper, I can do both. And it is going to be a wonderful thing for us because of our setup, because we don't want more than one TV, because we're both very easily overcome by that kind of lethargy that comes from just sitting in front of a TV.
And see, we have another TV upstairs, and we don't use it a whole lot, but we have it in our room. So initially I thought I wanted a second dock, and I still do, but now I'm wondering if I'm actually going to set up that dock attached to the TV like I originally thought, or if I'm just going to put it on my nightstand as a charging, like, you know, the charging spot at night, because I like the handheld mode so much that when I'm in my room, I don't feel that compelled to actually want to put it over onto the TV. Like, I'm perfectly happy playing with it in handheld mode. It would just be nice to charge it overnight. So I am going to get a second dock, and I don't know exactly how I'm going to hook it up in my room now, which is kind of interesting for me, that I'm leaning so heavily into that handheld portable mode that I don't even feel like I need to hook it up to a TV. And I wonder how many people out there are going to do that. Like, in general, like, never hook the system up to a TV, because you don't have to. There's no reason you have to.
The only reason I could really see it being an issue is playing Mario Kart 2 players, that having a split screen on such a tiny screen may not work out very well.
No, it's not. It's not a tiny screen, though. Like, because you're right up next to it when you're playing. Screen. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Like, it's actually a really big screen. It's perfectly handheld, but it's not tiny. Like, it's bigger than a Vita. I mean, it's a decent sized screen on the thing. I don't know. I will play Mario Kart in that mode, I promise you, and I will let you know. But I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, because that's really the only thing I can see is having split screen on what can be a handheld just doesn't seem nearly as honestly fun as it would be on a big screen.
It's not just a handheld though. You can take the screen off and you can just set it down. It doesn't have to be in your hands. Like, someone doesn't have to be looking over your shoulder, you know?
Oh, well, I know, but I mean, even just having it just split on that small of that little bit of real estate just doesn't seem appealing to me.
Okay, we'll see. I'll play around with it. I'll let you know when we get there.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes out in April, I'm going to get Mario Kart for sure. Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any other questions about the Switch that I did not answer?
Mainly, I just want to know about Zelda, so I guess I'll just hold off until we record that one.
Yes, next week we'll talk all about Zelda. I have lots and lots of thoughts about it, but I do want to actually... so I'm doing kind of my typical thing, right? Where I've talked about this before. I like to explore the systems. I like to wander and like explore the world. I like to kind of power up organically until something clicks in my mind where I feel like, okay, I've seen enough of the systems, I've internalized it enough, I'm powerful enough, I'm going to go critical path. And then I usually push through the whole critical path in like one shot. So I'm approaching probably, I don't know, I don't have a game timer. I'm probably approaching 30-ish hours on Zelda, and I've barely done any of the main quest. I think I'm about to hit the point where I'm going to flip over and start pushing through.
When you do that, are you going to go back and do any more of the world content after you finish it?
Yes, but I would like to finish the game and then free up some of myself for Mass Effect and Persona 5. That's that's part of me wanting to push through it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So with that, let's talk about Geeky Offer of the week. This week, let's plug Gamefly. You guys can go to gameflyoffer.com/geek and get like a free month trial of Gamefly. You can get, it's kind of like the old Netflix DVD plans. Get a game sent to you, play the game, send it back. But yeah, I mean, it's a good week for it. You know, you can go pick up Zelda. If you have a Wii U or a Switch, just pick up Zelda. It's a really, really good game. That's all I'll say about it. That, it's probably
I've actually thought about borrowing somebody's Wii U and game-flying Zelda and just do the whole thing for free, but I can't find anybody's Wii U to borrow locally right now.
Wow. Okay, with that, it's probably time for Weekly Geekery, which I don't have a whole lot of, so I'm going to go first, actually.
Okay.
I've been playing the Nintendo Switch the whole week, so the only other thing I did... I know, right? I just talked about it for like an hour. The only other thing that I did was I did put in that level 2 charger. I had the person in my family who's an electrician came over this weekend and we worked on it. We put in the level 2 charger for our electric car and it's sweet and I love it. And projects like that, home improvement, always takes longer than you think it will. So it was a chunk of my weekend last weekend, but it's in place and I'm so glad we did it and I still absolutely love it. That's it. That's all I have for Geekery. Go for it.
Man. Which is crazy, but I completely understand given everything that you're doing with the Switch. Like, that's all consuming. Like, my wife is tired of me.
Scroll down slightly in the show notes and look at how many Zelda notes I have already.
Oh, I've already read those.
Okay.
I was way ahead of you on that one. And,
okay. But what about you? What did you do this week?
Well, Logan came out. You haven't seen it yet, right?
No, now that I work full-time, normal hours again, I'm not going to be seeing as many movies because I used to see them on like Tuesday mid-morning and it was perfect and I can't do that now.
This is one of those that I want to talk about so badly. Like, this is Logan. I've always been an X-Men fan. And I've always loved the X-Men movies, and I was a 90s X-Men kid. Like, I loved the cartoon, I loved all the video games that came out, all of this. Like, X-Men was my thing for so long, that and Spider-Man. But I've never liked Wolverine. That Wolverine has always been one of those characters that I never really related to. I'd never liked the hyper-violent characters who were this kind of oozing machismo kind of super masculine, just rough around the edges kind of man's man like Wolverine is. And Logan very well might be my favorite comic book movie I've ever seen. It also might be the best comic book movie I've ever seen. If it is not, if it's not the best, then it is by far the most cinematic and meaningful of any of them that has really ever been made. It shows that the studio, the writer, the actor, everybody involved in this film set out to make something that was so much more than what they've been able to do in the MCU and in the X-Men franchise and in the Fantastic Four and Deadpool and Spider-Man, all of this. They did something that I didn't think was totally possible. It's kind of like Battlestar Galactica, in that I say that Battlestar Galactica is a military drama that happens to be in space, and that's kind of the way I feel about Logan, that this is a fine, like, literary Western that just happens to have comic book characters in it. That it hit on so much of that film scholar background that Jennifer and I both have, that we've been talking about it nonstop. We've been talking about themes and symbolism and the kind of allusions back into other, like, Western literature and the hero's journey. Obviously, I mean, I get really tired of that, but that's where a lot of my scholarship went into, and just so much that they've put together. Jennifer and I are thinking about doing a podcast together just to discuss it, because they really packed so much in this that it doesn't feel like a comic book movie. That there were multiple times that I cried at this movie, because yes, I have a connection to those characters because of growing up with them and seeing them through the movies, but this is also with the way that they handled it. It was real. Like, you could see and feel the emotions that they were doing. Like, the acting in this is head and shoulders beyond anything that I expected out of it. And, like, I don't even know. It's like, compared to Logan and the story that was being told, the narrative that they put in place, it makes me look back at the MCU and see that they are shallow. And that is saying a lot, because I love them. And
that's really impressive. I definitely want to see that movie. I just don't know when it's going to happen.
Go at a midnight show and go and get just whatever you have to. It is worth seeing, and it is worth taking the time out of your one night to go see it if you can. And I did the prep for it and I just read Old Man Logan, the very original one that was in the 2003 run of Wolverine, that was like number 66 to 72, I think. And when it was just a story arc and not its own series. And I didn't really like it. Like, it had some really good moments in it for Old Man Logan, but I didn't like it because, have you read that one? Is that one of them that you've read?
No, I think the only Old Man Logan that I read was it was like Secret Wars or something.
Okay. I haven't read that one yet. That was one of them that I want to after reading the original arc, but it was very comic booky, and it had a lot of good moments in it, but it still felt like it was one of those where, I know you and I have talked about it being comic booky before, where it was just over the top, and that was the exact opposite of what Logan the movie was. That it was subdued and heartfelt almost the entire way through it, to the point where when the credits rolled, I mean, there are very few movies these days that after the credits roll and we leave, that I'm still talking about it in such just hyper textual kind of manic, like, oh my God, I have so much I need to say about this movie. That does not happen very often for me anymore. And for Logan to have done it is super impressive. Because most of the time I just kind of like, yeah, I saw that movie. It was pretty good. We talk about it on here and I really don't think about it again. Kind of like Doctor Strange. It's like, oh yeah, that came out. Okay, cool. I like that movie a lot. It may have been one of my favorite ones. Like, I hadn't bothered to see it yet. Logan's like, when can I see this again? Oh my God, my life is not complete until I see this again. And I weep like a child. Like, that's
high praise. I mean, I wonder, part of it here might be like expectations too, just because like expectations for X-Men movies are generally so low, whereas MCU movies that are like, you know, the other ones by Disney are so high. I don't know. Something to think about. I don't know,
because this one I actually had really high expectations for based on the trailers. Like, I expected to be let down because I went in thinking that this was going to be what it was, and it was better than I expected it to be by far, and I actually had pretty decent expectations for it.
Okay, that's good.
Like, really good. Make the time to see it. And those of you who haven't seen it yet out there, go see this movie if, like, I liked it. So, if that's not obvious, I liked it. It's good. It's real good. Jennifer also played Journey this weekend. You've played Journey, I know. And
yeah, I've beaten it. It's good. I mean, it's a quick game to beat. It only takes you like 3 hours start to finish generally.
And it took her about 2 this last time to do it.
Okay.
So like if you go through, it takes about 2 hours to beat. It is one of the most beautiful and relaxing games I've ever played and watched. I like watching this game a lot more than I like playing it. And when my dad died in 2012, that first holiday season was really rough for me. And so Jennifer got Journey with some Christmas money on the PlayStation Network, and like she just played, and I watched it. It was so relaxing. So I've had a really, really stressful couple of weeks, been working a ton. I worked like 14 days solid because of deadlines and stuff that I had to do. So I was taking the weekend trying to relax some, and she decided to play Journey, and because she had been talking about it for a while. So I sat back and I watched it, and it was beautiful. And I wanted to read what she posted on Facebook about it, because it pretty much sums up everything that is Journey that you can experience with it. And she says, "Last night, I decided to pull up Journey on the PS3. It was a beautiful experience when I played it a few years ago, so I decided to revisit it. Early on, I came across another player. We made it through the first section together, and then the next, and then the next. We ended up playing through the entire game as companions. I hadn't planned to play through the whole game in one sitting. Granted, it only took a couple of hours, but with my companion kept sticking with me, I decided to stick with him or her. When one of us would mess up or fall, the other would wait for our companion to catch up before moving on to the next section. When we got separated, we would chirp back and forth so we could find one another. That's the only communication you have, by the way, guys. And when we climbed the last part of the mountain in snow and wind so fierce that we could barely walk forward, it actually felt like we had fought through a long journey together. And when the game forced us to separate for the very last part of the game, I actually felt sad at losing my companion. As the game ended, I sat through all the credits, waiting to see the screen name of the person who had been so kind and loyal through the whole game. Then I saw the following on the screen. Companions met along the way. Kill you 422. Sort of diminished the enchantment a bit. And
it's really good. I like that.
Like, seriously, she waited. We were talking about, this is going to be something awful. We were like, because the only way you can communicate is just making sounds and symbols and kind of hopping at people. And so it was just great to, like, this person was wonderful. And then we're laughing, like, it could be like Emily 793 or Chuck Boy 455. And no, we get through and it's like, kill you 422. It's like, wow, of course it was kill you 422, which we also found out was a penal code in California for threatening to kill someone, which is 422. So it's like, good job, person. Good job, kill you 422. So,
wow.
So if you guys want to know a good Journey player, though, add them on PSN. I finished, so Journey's great. Y'all should play it. Finished up Saga. I desperately want more. I don't know what I can say that I didn't already, but super good. Kind of like my favorite comic of like forever now. So it is so good. Brian K. Vaughan did so many good things with it. I absolutely love it, and I'm desperately wanting more, and I can't wait in Volume 7 to come out.
How many? I was just going to ask how many volumes there were. I think I read about 4 of them, and then I was like, in one day, and then I was tired of paying more money every time I wanted another volume. I was like, I don't feel that much into the story, so I'll just wait. But I should probably go back and catch up one of these days.
Yeah, there are 6 out right now, and I want to say it's like April 11th of this year that comes out with the 7th one, and I'm super excited because it ended on a cliffhanger where I was like, no, and I really, really have to know what goes on. And this morning I picked up Persona 4 Golden.
Yeah.
It's on sale on PlayStation Network right now for $15. So when I saw it, I just went ahead and picked it up. You said that it was like your favorite RPG of forever, and that you were looking forward to Persona 5 more than Zelda because of this.
I still stand by that.
Okay, that's awesome. Like, that's what I wanted to ask you. So far, I've played about half an hour of this game today. and I really dig the music. Like, I really, really, really think that the music is great. And I haven't really been able to do any battles yet. I've just been wandering around doing it. And I like the conversations that I can see where...
If you've played half an hour, you really haven't done anything yet. You've mostly been reading text, right?
Yeah. I've been reading text, wandering around the city, and interacting with a couple of, like, the hero's uncle and stuff like that, and the kids at school a little bit. Like, that's it. And I can already see that I'm really going to like this game, but the graphics are different than I thought it was going to be. I thought they were going to be hand-drawn.
Why? Really? Why?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it took me by surprise that it was just normal 3D RPG kind of stuff, because I fully expected kind of like a Ni no Kuni kind of hand-drawn vibe. No idea why. But it's pretty. Okay. I like it, but it just surprised me. So here's my question. Like, I had initially planned on selling my Vita and putting that money toward a Switch, or thinking about it. And with Persona 4 and Persona 5 coming out like this, is it worth getting a Switch right now and worrying about that to play Zelda, or should I play through Persona 4 and 5 on my Vita?
Well, Persona 5 is not going to be on your Vita.
Is it not?
No, it's PS3 and PS4.
Okay, so I have a PS3, so at least there's that. I thought it was going to be Vita because Persona 4 Golden was Vita.
No, so what are you playing on right now? You're playing on your Vita for the Persona 4?
Yeah, Persona 4 on the Vita.
See, it's so hard because I don't know how much you are going to like this game. It ended up being one of my favorite games of all time, and it took me by surprise. But it's a long game, and it has a slow start. And then after you get past that, it's like you're invested in it. But I also know you, and I feel like you are going to get a ton out of the Switch. So I don't know which way to steer you. I would say, I know you too well, because to other people who are gamers, I would just say power through Persona 4 as fast as you can, and then sell it and buy the Switch. But you don't power through games the way that I do. So that's not really an option. So I'm not sure.
Like, because I'm liking it so far. Like, even the half hour, I can see a lot of potential in this, and I'm already intrigued. So I'll let you know how it goes, because I've heard too much from too many people about how great this game is, and to give it the first couple of 3 hours, and really that's when it starts to pick up a lot, and you see more of what's going on.
Yeah, that's one of those games where most of the time I can tell within the first half hour of a game what I'm going to think of it. And that one, I didn't get a feel for it until it doesn't really open up until 3-ish hours in, like you were saying, 2 or 3 hours. And then I still didn't have a really good feel for it until probably like the 6-hour mark out of 40, 45 maybe that I played it.
And that's fine, because that's actually what happened with Xenoblade Chronicles. I got 7 hours into it, realized what the game was going to be, and knew it wasn't for me. And so I'm cool with doing that. I put it in because I liked it enough to play it, but I didn't like it enough for 70 hours, which, I may not miss either.
If you don't end up getting a Switch, then you should definitely report back about Persona 4 next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, with that, I think that's it for the week. We will talk Zelda next week, though. I have a ton of notes already, and I keep adding to it because I keep thinking of new things to say. I think that's about it. You can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We have the longer discussion threads on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
And if you want to get email updates about any of our network's podcasts, you can sign up at geek2geekcast.net and just let us know what shows you want to get updates about.
I blog at agreenmushroom.com, and you can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's. And I blog and podcast at geekfitness.net.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Bye, guys. Ooh, okay.
Comics. Hey everyone, this is Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek.
And this is Liam, the languishing, lascivious Liam of Langley.
Wow, that was extremely illiterate of you.
Well, I try.
We are the hosts of The Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network.
So join us.
Bop, bop.
Oh, yeah.